NABN, New Africa Broadcasting Network.
The distinguished Chairman, Dr. Daniels, Your Excellency, Dr. Francis Kaikai, I will take the liberty to introduce Dr. Kaikai. I call him the Senior Ambassador, being that the Senior Ambassador was because he was first to be accredited after he passed confirmation hearings in Sierra Leone, and he came here. So he is Sierra Leone's ambassador to the United Nations. That's not all. In less than 1 year, he is so revered and respected in our country that the president thought of appointing him again as to a cabinet level post as Minister of Development and Country Planning for the entire Republic of Sierra Leone. And let me also recognize my spiritual leader, Imam Talib Rashid, for his tireless support and advocacy for the continent. Imam, thank you. The Reverend Dylan, for teaching us Africans about the value of being an African in the diaspora. Thank you very much. And of course, to my boss, who call him the most distinguished chairman who leads Africans in this country, the scientist, the distinguished professor, who was voted twice as the best doctor in the United States, Dr. Mohammed Nur Hussein. Dr. Nur Hussein took upon himself to mobilize 300 Ethiopian doctors to raise $100 million to build a state-of-the-art hospital and cancer center in his country, Ethiopia. We call him the diplomat. He told me we used to call him the Excellency, but definitely I think there was a coup with Dr. Daniels, part of that coup. They wanted me to leave New York so that Excellency Gordon Tapper would become the de facto president of the United African Congress, and he's done such a phenomenal job. When you walk into the UN with Ambassador Gordon Tapper, you won't have problem getting in. You will have problem getting out because everybody knows him. And of course, I can't forget my freedom fighter, my brother. And I say these things because this assembly did not just happen like that. There were people who have paid dearly for many of you to sit at this table. So I think for those of us who were there from the beginning, it is important, like always the distinguished chairman says, to tell the truth. Because when you tell the truth, that's the way you be free. Milton Alamadi, I can say this proudly, has been the single person, loner, that have taken up the fight for his country, Uganda. And he leads that effort with excellence and distinction, and I'm proud to call him comrade. And my sister, you know, if we're going to have another president in the Dominican Republic, I got a candidate. and I say this because some of us who have been in the movement, we know what it means to be on the street. We know what it means to be in organizations where discrimination is rampant. But with all the blows, with all the ups and downs, I'm proud that our sister Estelle is today the VP of over 400,000 members, Local 1199, and he's an immigrant. My family, all of you who have been a part of my life and continue to be part of my life, please give yourself a big round of applause, and I thank you all. The diaspora is pivotal to the sustainability of the ongoing rebranding of Africa. The African diaspora is very integral to the socio-economic development of the continent of Africa. That explains why you have the presence of many luminaries in this room today and on the table. Names like our journalist Moses, my comrades in both United African Congress, UAC, and the Pan-African Unity Dialogue. Allow me to begin this address by thanking you all for the sustained partnership and support you have provided me over these many years. Whether it was from the streets of the Bronx, during the tragic death of the late Amadou Diallo that was shot 41 times, to his tragic death in the hands of the New York City Police Department, thereby unleashing the ire of New Yorkers and the world about the ugly chapters of police brutality. Some of you in this room marched alongside with the UAC on the streets of New York, Albany, Washington, D.C., to demand justice. Whether it was the Ebola epidemic that afflicted the countries of Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Liberia, you partnered with the United African Congress, Give Them a Hand Foundation, along with many peoples of goodwill, to advocate for the world to pay attention, that ultimately wiped out the epidemic with a robust donor mobilization of billions of dollars to end the epidemic that took the lives of thousands of people in the affected countries. Some of you in this room, we are on the front lines with us. We thank you. And whether it was the principal campaign mounted by this pole to fight for immigrant rights in the United States, as well as to promote good governance on the continent of Africa, many of you have stood shoulder to shoulder with us in speaking truth to power without compromise. And whether it was an issue of good governance on the continent of Africa that mainstream media was silent about publishing, Black Star News freely and willingly provided the pages of its newspaper to speak truth to power. Thank you, Milton. And finally, whether it was a campaign to elect the first African from Ethiopia to head the World Health Organization, WHO, you joined the fight to make it happen. The truth is, comrades, my new assignment with my appointment to President Julius Maada Bio of the Republic of Sierra Leone, my birth country, as Sierra Leone's ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary and chief of mission to the United States, along with 7 additional countries, could rightfully be credited to the encouragement, support, and wise counsel that I have received from this illustrious group of Pan-Africanists in the United States in general and New York City in particular. For years, Dr. Daniel has fought diligently and without surrender in bringing the African families together. Thank you, Doc. Ladies and gentlemen, when I was thinking about this idea, I said to Dr. Daniels in a little note, I said, Doc, could you help me write this speech? And he wrote back to me and said, somebody of your eloquence and brilliance don't need me for you to write a speech. But however, the professor and him, so it aligned the topics that I had. And he wanted me to talk about my vision as Ambassador Extraordinary Plenipotentiary to promote the new direction agenda of HE President Julius Maada Bio, which is focused on human capital development and national cohesion. Yeah. I thank you for your friendship, and may Allah bless you all for caring and sharing with me, especially during this holy month of Ramadan, our holiest month as Muslims. I do hope and trust that our relationship will continue even as I now make my residency in Washington, D.C. Despite this fact, New York City will always remain my home away from home. My thanks and gratitude to Australian President Dr. Julius Maada Bio for providing me the privilege and opportunity to now be nameless, as my chairman, mentors, and colleagues now call me His Excellency.
That was nice.
What a journey it has been. What an opportunity to continue carrying our message to world leaders. Be rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, I will carry that message without fear. Mr. Chairman, distinguished gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, Africa is a continent with great potential, with a population of 1.2 billion out of the 7 billion of people in the world, and with the most youthful population demographic in the world. Africa is a place of promise. Africa is also the second largest continent in the world, and it has the most expansive and diverse concentrations of natural resources. Africa also has infrastructure needs calculated at beyond $100 billion every year. There is also tremendous potential investment in all sectors, from small to heavy industry, manufacturing, technology, agribusiness, tourism, renewable energy, to urban development. Indeed, the prospect for high profit and returns for investment are very high in Africa. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, despite these opportunities to most, Africa is still defined in terms of bad governance, natural disasters, hunger and diseases, corruption, and political instability. But thankfully, with renewed determination in recent years by some African leaders, including my own president, H.E. Julius Maada Bio, we are rising up to the challenges. We are changing the narrative by telling our own story in our own voice. In the area of trade and investment, there has been an impressive progress in improving the regulatory environment for doing business and promoting trade and investment. Many African governments are now engaged in reviewing their outdated legal instruments dealing with the rule of law. Quote, rebranding, end of quote, has now claimed to be the catchphrase associated with transformation of institutions. We already have the instrument and momentum to invigorate the process of integration of our continent on the African Continental Free Trade Agreement that was brokered by the African Union, AU, and signed by 44 of its 54 member states in Kigali, Rwanda, on March 21st, 2018. When implemented, this agreement would prospectively become the largest planned free trade area in the world in terms of participating countries since the formation of the World Trade Organization. Secondly, in the area of peace and security, there are fewer armed conflicts now in Africa than ever before. Today, African ladies are taking the lead in ensuring quicker return to stability in countries affected by armed conflict through more robust frameworks designed and implemented by the African Union, ECOWAS, and other regional organizations. Furthermore, we are witnessing continued progress on governance, although we are still facing challenges in fighting corruption. For example, in my country, the administration of President Julius Maada Bio has set up commissions of inquiry to hold corrupt officials of the former government to be held to account. Let me just say this. The monies that these people stole, the president recouping that money through the commission of inquiry, they are investing that money into free education in our country. Additionally, Africa's working age population is growing rapidly, with estimations that the number of young people entering the region's workforce will exceed that of the rest of the world by the year 2050. While this growth is a potential economic benefit, measures have to be put in place to prevent unrest. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the old age problem of the continent of Africa to be passive on the UN Security Council is once again being a matter of concern, with my president, H.E. Julius Maada Bio, the coordinator of C10, advocating and demanding for full membership and voting representation on the UN Security Council. The cause is right and just, and that time is now. Mr. Chairman, allow me to speak on the subject that is very close to my heart, the diaspora. There are two distinct groups of Africans in the diaspora. There are Africans that were involuntarily moved out of the continent as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. This set of people, a consciousness of return has always been strong. It was a consciousness of a return to the state of liberty, a return to the assertion of economic, political, and cultural freedom. This consciousness of return led to the founding of the province of Freedom, which is today known as Freetown, by freed slaves in 1789. It was this consciousness of return that led to the revolt of Sengbe Pierre, commonly known here in the United States as Joseph Sink, during the Amistad affairs. Good. It was also this consciousness of return and assertion of cultural identity that sustained the Gula community here in America.
Yes.
A community with ancestral roots in the rice-growing regions of Sierra Leone. Right. It was this consciousness of a return to freedom enterprise and eternal values that sustained the civil rights movement right here in America. It was this consciousness of belonging and associated identity, this memory of common ancestry, These enduring aspirations for a better destiny, for perfect engagement with Africa and the people of African descent, that African descent, that severally or individually inspired the formation of the Pan-Africanism, the African American civil rights movement of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, the Congressional Black Caucus, Black Lives Matter, the Constituency for Africa, the Pan-African Unity Dialogue, the United African Congress, and many of the progressive organizations dedicated to making better world and by making a better Africa. The second set of Africans in the diaspora, which most of us in this room belong to, is the most recent immigrants. Migrants to Europe, Americas, and in the last few decades, Australia and Asia, particularly China, you guessed it. A good number of us in this category comprise the most skilled, hardworking Pan-Africans that has made America their home away from home. The rush to DNA.com has endeared many of these settlers to trace their heritages to many regions and tribes in Africa. The leaders of these countries are now welcoming their sons and daughters to their ancestral homes. 2 weeks ago, Sierra Leone President held a huge welcome home event at State House to many African Americans that trace their DNA to Sierra Leone. We should, however, note that due to the myriads of problems in our continent, the commitment to return amongst both the voluntary and involuntary diaspora has not been without challenges. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, talking about the role of diaspora in the development of Africa, it is worthy to note that the African diaspora population in North America is estimated to be around, you guessed it, 8.5 million. And they are considered to be very influential in the United States. We have championed Africa's development through advocacy for appropriate U.S. government and priorities in Africa. For example, during the armed conflict in Sierra Leone in 1990, the diaspora was the key in mobilizing support for peace and justice in our country. Similarly, during the outbreak of Ebola virus, the diaspora community of the three most affected countries, Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, together with community organizations from other countries, played major roles in the fight to end the Ebola epidemic. The African American community in the United States, through organizations such as Pan-African Unity Dialogue, the Congressional Black Caucus, Constituency for Africa, the United African Congress, and several others, have been instrumental in lobbying for American legislators for the benefit of African countries. In addition to this, Africa has continued to benefit from remittances from nationals in the diaspora to their countries of origin. It has been very remarkable. For example, according to the World Bank, not me speaking, the African diaspora remittances was $35.2 billion in 2015. In 2018, that figure rose to $45 billion. These remittances provide the much-needed finances for ensuring household security and alleviating poverty, improve access to financial sector services, and provide opportunity for family members to embark on self. And with the dire need to reverse the brain drain, there has been a concerted effort at mobilizing the African diaspora back to the continent. In July 2001, the Organization for African Unity, which is now the African Union, adopted a resolution urging member states, quote, to develop strategies for utilizing the scientific and technical know-how and skills of the African diaspora, end of quote, for the development of the continent. The AU went a further step by declaring the African diaspora as the, quote, sixth region, end of quote, for Africa. In that regard, ladies and gentlemen, several members in this room participated in meetings organized by the African Union, the Citizens Directorate, held at the AU mission in New York. I was one of the 6 members elected by the African diaspora in the United States to represent the 6th region. Article 3Q of the Protocol of the Amendment of the Constitutive Act, quote, invite and encourage the full participation of the African diaspora as an important part of our continent in building the African Union, end of quote. The Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD, some people call it, called for the establishment of a reliable continental database to determine the magnitude of the problem of brain drain and promote cooperation between Africans abroad and those at home. The key priority here is to develop Africa's human resources and reverse the brain drain. Under NEPAD, African leaders recommended the creation of the, quote, necessary political, social, and economic conditions that will serve as incentives to curb the brain drain, end of quote. Furthermore, the World Bank too got into the act and has been very instrumental in collaborating with African governments on diaspora issues. In September 2007, the bank's African region launched the African Diaspora Program. The program deals with diaspora policy formulation and implementation, financing and leveraging of remittances for development of human capital utilizations through diaspora professional networks and organizations and hometown association. At the national level, a good number of African governments, including my country, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria, Cape Verde, Liberia, Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia, Mali, to name but a few, have policies and strategies to fully tap into the potential of the diaspora. In Mali, for example, there is a Minister of African Diaspora, a cabinet-level position. In my country, Sierra Leone, if I'm not mistaken, appointed the first ambassador to the United States, a diaspora Sierra Leonean American that lived in the United States for over 37 years. I'm the only one. Upon assumption of office, the administration of His Excellency President Julius Maada Bio conducted a management functional review of the Office of the Diaspora Affairs as part of the government's commitment to strengthen and improve service delivery. Similarly, our embassy in Washington, D.C. has embarked upon engaging my compatriots in the United States and other countries of my accreditation to get Sierra Leonean professionals to return to fill the critical capacity gaps in our ministries, departments, and agencies, MDAs. Over the couple of days, we have engaged the Sierra Leonean diaspora medical community in concerted efforts to provide high-class medical services in our country. The embassy has also stepped up efforts to create a database of Sierra Leoneans in the diaspora. As part of our diaspora engagement, we are holding the first national town hall meeting in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area on June 15, 2019. You are all invited. Mr. Chairman, in view of the fact that the administration of His Excellency President Bio has put more emphasis on economic diplomacy, I cannot come here and go back without giving you highlights of the great progress our government has made in the area of doing business in Sierra Leone in just 1 year. And let me be clear, Sierra Leone is open for business. And let me tell you, what have we done? The government has established an investment board co-chaired by His Excellency the President and the Vice President that will be a one-stop shop for expediting and resolving all investor disputes. Number two, there is a comprehensive investment code that will ease the burden of doing business in the country. Number three, tax regimes and customs processes have been automated and streamlined. Number four, the government is scaling up investment in roads, electricity, and water supply. Taking into consideration that good governance and sustainable development call for a robust fight against corruption, President Bio has waged war on corruption in Sierra Leone. And you know, people criticize and said the president is hunting them. And he says, I'm not hunting anybody, I'm just hunting the money they stole.
That's good. I like that.
President Bio's fight against corruption has been acknowledged by the United States, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, MCC, with an unprecedented passing grade of 71% from 49% in early 2018.
All right.
And we have not even been in office for 2 years. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, harnessing the potential of the diaspora requires collaborative office. Let me propose a few ideas for your consideration.
All right.
Number one, I will continue to engage, to encourage my colleagues in the African group of ambassadors to see the diaspora as reliable partners in promoting economic development, investment, and trade on the continent of Africa.
Right.
I will continue to encourage CEDO to work with the African diaspora communities in the United States to establish full-time diaspora coordinators at the African Union offices in New York and Washington, D.C. Right now, we don't have that. They can also use the powers of the Union, of the African Union, to encourage state houses in the United States, 50 of them, to hire coordinators for trade and investment in Africa. I have no doubt that the goodwill exists in these Pan-African Unity dialogue constituencies to make this happen by 2020. African ambassadors, both in New York and Washington, D.C., could invite credible and essential stakeholders to make presentations to the African group during their monthly meetings for the purpose of sharing ideas and implementing programs. I will also encourage Pan-African Unity Dialogue to expand their invitation list beyond me and the AU ambassadors. There are plenty brilliant African ambassadors that we want to come to this forum and share their experiences with you. I told the chairman that after me, hopefully your next speaker will come from Mali, the French-speaking countries, because this is a vibrant, dynamic ambassador. When I told him, he says, when can I come?
All right.
Port also must use its political influence and clout and power to power with the African Ambassadors Group to conduct an Africa Lobby Day in Washington, D.C.
All right.
I will also, and this we said it before, encourage our African diaspora citizens in the United States to form a national political action committee that will elect Africans, progressive African Americans, to the legislative houses in the United States, including city, state, and the federal government of the United States. You cannot leave that alone. And we shall continue to dialogue with our stakeholders like the World Bank, African Union, Organization for Migration, the United Nations Development Program, for its world-renowned transfer of knowledge through expatriate nationals. As I take my seat and shut up, I'm reminded of an old Bible proverb that says, "It is only in its own home and among its own kindred that a prophet goes unhonored." But today, you have shown me otherwise by providing me and my delegation, Ambassador Dr. Francis Kaikai, Ms. Jennifer Pudan Buntijan, First Secretary, Mr. Suresh, Transportation Director, my family and friends that have traveled far to attend this important gathering of stakeholders, that we are honored. And I thank you and God bless you.
NAB